Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbout333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order, the real Naz, the United Kingdom. Last video, we welcomed in the new social credit government. It's actually helping quite a bit of our poverty rate, but I was looking ahead, and it is not going to help with our inflation. So real quick, before I go on, I'm going to go back to fresh off the presses and get working on GDP before we swap over to social credit. In the name of His Majesty, King Edward VIII, I hereby appoint the following as members of the Cabinet and the government ran in his name. Home Secretary, Hastings Russell, 12th Duke of Bedford. Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rolf Garner. Foreign Secretary, Arthur Bryant. Defense Secretary, Patrick Donner. Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Walter James, 4th Baron Northbourne. Lord Chancellor, Edward Russell, 26th Baron de Clifford. Minister of Health and Science, Henry Williamson. Minister of Health, Philip Myrat. Minister of Labor, Henry Drummond Wolfe. Minister of Transport, Godman Irvine. Minister of Food and Agriculture, Adrian Bell. Minister of Culture, John Hargrave. Minister of the Board of Trade, Michael Graham. Minister of the Commonwealth, John Green. Jesus Christ, the vlog brother's really fallen off. Scotland Secretary, Randolph Stewart, 12th Earl of Galloway. Postmaster General, Sir Charles Petrie, 3rd Baronet. Chief of the Defense Staff, Gerald Templar. Chief of the Imperial General Staff, Walter Walker. First Sea Lord and Chief of the Naval Staff, Angus Graham, 7th Duke of Montrose. Chief of the Air Staff, Benson Railton Freeman. There we go. Philby spun a pen between his fingers as he sorted through the papers in Knight's office. His office. It still took him by surprise to think that the old boy was gone, to think that he was now in his place. There was still the cuckoo cage in the corner of the third shelf lined with nature books. He was so busy with the necessities of his new position, they had no time to clean up the office itself, to strip away what remained of Maxwell Knight and replace it with what made up Kim Philby. No matter, redecoration would be safe for a later date. The clock ticked 11, though the power... Through the window, he could see the moon and the stars, poked through the black fabric of the sky. Beneath the cold light of a desk lamp, Philby pored over the intelligence reports from MI5. His MI5. They spoke of unrest in the city, in the countryside. In the former, the BPP was tearing itself apart with Wobb's sudden direction towards its pet beliefs. The old guard were split, knives out against traitors in the ranks. The ideologues were like headless chickens, and the pragmatists were in shock at their quest for number 10. In the latter, rapid changes in social and economic policy created rapid social unrest, an influx of internal immigration, citizens answering the call of crown credit, were amassing in villages and towns unprepared for their arrivals. Prices were rising and falling daily. Shopkeepers and traders had no idea how to respond to a new system. Philby said about a briefing with the Prime Minister. In these matters, he always felt it best to type the report himself. He wrote about Fontaine loyalists ready to be plucked from the camp like ripe fruit. Butler-affiliated bureaucrats struggling to fulfill their requests, and throughout it all, rumblings of more resistance. But nothing to fear, Prime Minister. The Civil War has put any thought of further resistance to bed. Dissent in your ranks needs greater attention. No need to worry about rebellion. Knight's rebellion. His rebellion. I love that little, finally, yeah, oh yeah, he's been... I've been laughing all along. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but yeah, Philby... Ooh, yeah, Philby is not a British fascist. I mean, if you know anything about this guy in real life, he was the reddest of reds that there could be. Dear Sir Arthur Bryant, it has been heartening to write this letter to you in these circumstances. Your appointment to high office has long been overdue. We've worked together for so long in this ministry and elsewhere that I consider it natural that you should join me too in cabinet. You and I know that British values are but a distant memory to these days. It is our sacred duty to revive them, but it is your duty to promote them within the Isles through Europe, and over the entire world. Before we can do this, we must engage in unseemly business. Germany remains supreme, and so long as the continent remains within their control, we will need their support. Though I served only a brief time in your position, and under irregular circumstances, I found that half my time was spent appeasing them. Our charted course towards the revitalization of English lands shall put us in conflict with their conglomerates. I have a plan to alleviate this, but I will need your assistance. Expect a meeting from me in the future. Consider this first trial for you, one of many moments when we must appease this sick man of a master. God willing, when the continent chokes on its own bile, England shall reclaim a rightful place in the world. When that day comes, I want you beside me. You've written a great deal about history, but now you have the opportunity to enter it. Kind regards. Is that Gerald Portsmouth? I can't read the cursive. It inspires both dread and hope. The former more than the latter. Well, next, time for coin and character. Social credit is a simple economic theory, deceptively so, for it is a true genius to that it can only be discovered through close examination. The theory posits that the government should issue lines of credit, effectively free money, to businesses and people in order to revitalize the economy. The genius of this is that it virtually removes the role of bankers in the flow of money and gets rid of much of their vile, cancerous influence on the English stock. This theory is obviously very convincing, and we will implement it as quickly as possible, with, of course, an authentically English twist. Instead of giving out money en masse, we will target nearly all our lines of credit to the countryside, and incentivize small businesses to return to the soils through the advantages social credit will bring with them. Also increase our GDP a little bit, which will be nice. But now you may stare as you like, and there's nothing to scan, and brushing your elbow unguessed at and not to be told. They carry back Bryant to the corner, the mintage of man, the lads that will die in their glory and never be old. Dear Mr. Hastings Russell, 12th Duke of Bedford, there is a part of me that shall always respect you. You are among the founders of our BPP, which has tried to serve its namesake diligently since the war. It is the party which I shall remain loyal to until I am dead. They also mourn the rest of your career and find your appointment to this office concerning. To be frank, you had an opportunity when you were Prime Minister and you blew it. Not only did you break under pressure, you let Chesterton into power, whose mistakes you'll be fixing for years to come. Rob's best decision was keeping that old drunk as far away from cabinet as possible, but among all his worst decisions, appointing you to the Home Office might be among the highest. I don't know what Wallop sees in you that he would drag you out of the coffin you should have stayed in. Maybe he still remembers you and your wife's tiff in the press and took pity. Maybe he's gone mad too. Just do me a favor, and don't blow your brains out once you break under the pressure yet again. Have the dignity to resign first. Regards, Andrew Fontaine. It, like any other tantrum, stirs nothing but pity in its recipients. Which one is that in the Philippines? Is that the... Yeah, that is the Japanese one. Okay. Mrs. Evans. Following a governmental audit of private enterprise in Herefordshire, your shop has been deemed sufficiently productive to claim credit vouchers on behalf of His Majesty's government. The enclosed leaflet contains further information regarding how credit vouchers may be applied and the circumstances under which they will be accepted. We wish you the best of luck in your productive enterprises. The leaflet gave more details along with assurances that wherever pounds were good, so were credit vouchers. So far as Clara could tell, it was actually trying to tell her that the government had made a new type of money just for people like her, supposedly purely to help her diversify her goods and expand her business. Clara scoffed, sliding the letter aside on the shop counter before lighting a cigarette. What utter rubbish. People had no decency, none at all. She knew times were hard, but swindling the desperate with fake government letters was just vile. The idiots could have tried to make it as plausible, at least. London caring enough to send her money, now that was a riot. Then again, she thought while looking around at the empty shop, the day was going slow. And the address on the enclosed leaflet really was a government office. She knew it well enough. She could at least see what the fuss was about, she resolved, putting on her coat and flipping the shop sign to closed. It was to her surprise that when she actually arrived at the government office, she wasn't alone. A long line of people she recognized stretched past the building. There's Arthur from the pharmacy and Elena from the grocer's. Each person she noticed clutched the same letter she did. Still in shock the letter hadn't been a trick, she silently filed into line. Briefly, she wondered where the government had gotten the money for all of this, but to be honest, she didn't care. Things were hard and the shop needed it. As far as Clara was concerned, the Prime Minister could figure it out. Rolf Garner was an unusual Chancellor of the Exchequer. For one, he had no background in economics, save for his advocacy for social credit. Secondly, he was a very inexperienced and junior parliamentarian, and was generally only seen as having been promoted because the PM wanted someone who would echo his own thoughts in economics. Even the old guard of the party were outraged by his appointment, seeing him as an incompetent upstart. They were right. Rolf Garner was indeed not a competent chancellor and did not have any real economic knowledge, yet he was the man Gerald Wallop turned to today to build his budget to destroy usury. First of all, Prime Minister, I would suggest building a system of subsidies for rural areas. First and foremost, of course, agricultural subsidies, but also subsidies through the form of credit vouchers and for small businesses willing to move away from the cities. Secondly, we need to get rid of price controls. They never should have been introduced, and they're a tool of banking which will damage our stock more for every day they remain. Lastly, and most importantly, we need to start creating more money in order to give our people the right to debt-free purchasing power. I've written a list detailing our targets for this year. Wallop nodded his assent to all this. The ideas were ones he had proposed on many occasions, and Garner may as well have been speaking with his own voice, which, of course, is why he was appointed in the first place. If usury fails, how much of Britain's economy will survive it? Let's check out Crown Credit. Crown credit on its surface is a little different from social credit proposed by C.H. Douglas. However, in a close examination, Crown credit is a far more uniquely English institution than social credit. It shares Douglas's analysis regarding banking being the source of all the social ills, but taking it a step further than that, explicitly blaming Jewish people for what they see as a decline in the English stock and the decline in the English countryside, urbanization to them being driven by Jewish banking interests. It seeks to build a thriving market economy made up of smaller businesses that do not have the size or ability to cause much damage to the land. This, unfortunately, puts it into direct conflict with the German megacorporations who are not eager to leave the countryside as the government says so. Therefore, the new economic model seeks to dislodge them by force and reverse the trend of rural migration to urban areas by giving preferential treatment to English businesses in the countryside, leading to these businesses being able to compete with the megacorporations, greater economic growth in the countryside, and hopefully a widespread move back to the green fields of England by the people. This is like anarcho-primitivism. What the fuck? Well, we're about to up our credit rate at least. Oh my god. Wait, can we... Okay, we broke the economy. Well, inflation is just fucked right now. We are permanently at 12%. My god, it shot up a whole 1.5%. Yeah, our debt is going to go fucking bananas. Fucking hell. But we have a real GDP growth of 0.001%, boys. We're coming along. Fucking hell. Well, this is the land we tilled, after all. Oh, it's gonna reduce our GDP growth. What the fuck? Sorrel cries for English stock to till it, and deep down, the very soul of the Englishmen cry out for the chance to perform that noble task. It is an Englishman's role and right to tend to England's rich lands, but sadly the evils of finance capitalism, usury, and cosmopolitanism have done much to sever the spiritual link between the Englishman and his land, rendering him powerless to fight against their influence. We must correct this if we are to have any hopes of reviving the England of old, before the tides of history wipe it out forever. We shall start by giving the agricultural sector the credit it needs to assume its proper place as our primary leader. It dawns in Asia, tombstones show, and Shropshire names are read, and the Nile spills its overflow beside the Severn's dead. Dear Prime Minister, as a former candidate for Prime Minister, denied the office by your arrival, I feel compelled to write you in the days following your victory. I assume Fontaine was too churlish to even grant you the dignity of a similar response. When I first heard your intent to become Prime Minister, I expected a continuation of former governments. Instead, upon hearing of your cabinet, I recalled a conversation we shared just before the Civil War. It seems you have finally become the Mussolini of agriculture, lord and protector of English stock. Still, unlike Fontaine's luck, you at least did Britain the courtesy of appointing men familiar with agricultural matters, and not just rhetoric. What concerns me more is your full-throated approval for dangerous economic policies. I've already written at length to your Chancellor of the Exchequer, but I expect my concerns to have been ignored. Therefore, I will approach you directly. Your policies of Crown credit will be an unmitigated disaster. You cannot purchase economic prosperity in this manner without a great risk of runaway prices and crippling your ability to keep up. It is akin to a man shooting himself in the foot in the hopes that the open wound might make him more aerodynamic. God damn, he did not need to go that hard. I implore you, as former Chancellor who kept our economy stable during moments of great difficulty, to reconsider all these policies which threaten to immiserate the British people and put our financial situation in jeopardy. What you might think of Douglas's theories, they are unsound and untested, and rather than even a measured trial, you are approaching this task with a broad brush. For the sake of our country, turn back now, before it is too late. Regards, Rab Butler. It is ignored for its lateness, and its imprudence, and its whiny character. On the Prime Minister's desk lay an act, put forward by the Department of Agriculture and approved by the Commons and Lords alike. A small part of him had agonized over the decision as the bill made its way to his desk. One little signature, a few strokes of pen, and Jared Walp had sealed a new compact between the cities and countryside. The 1964 Industrial Renovation Act laid a framework for his government's future industrial policy, one which consisted the concentrated corporations towards the cities. Corporate taxes on assets in the countryside would be severely increased, heavy enough to drive them from the hills and plains. In the cities, however, conditions would be far more favorable. Minimum wages would be slashed across the board, guaranteeing cheaper labor. The stick and the carrot by which Walp would contain the German corporations. They could have the cities with its pollution, environmental and spiritual, so long as they did not touch the countryside. They would know what to do with these concrete prisons and their architects. Walp cared far more for the country, where the English spirit would find succor and salvation. He planned to see the British economy shift its attention away from the cities to the villages. Crown credit would spur on this transition. Outside his window, the London smog rose to its peak. A gray haze swirled around the cityscape, choking the life out of its inhabitants. Even here, Walp could taste the pollution of the air. He set aside the signed act and looked outside the window. He imagined it worse. Smokestacks billowing poison, filling the air in the lungs. The Thames black and green with runoff. He accepted that it would get worse. If it makes them happy, the Germans could have the cities, so long as the English had the country. Pockets of pollution, when concentrated, shall not spill out over the land. I don't think that that's how it works at all, but okay. God damn it. We once again are suffering over GDP. Okay. I'm gonna have to like keep twiddling with. I'm gonna have to keep twiddling with this, just to get it to stay positive. Fucking hell. At least our poverty rate is still going down. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there, gang. But thank you as always for watching. Like this video if you like it, dislike if you didn't, leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback man have for me. Check out my various links down in the description box below. Leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below. And I'll leave it there for now, my friends. Thank you as always for watching. My name has been Mr. Dogweb333. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.